some interesting news just came out about 5 hours ago, according to Fernando Barbosa of ESPN Knockout. Basically, that's ESPN Mexico. He's broken big news before in the past, but let me go ahead and read it to you. Here's what he posted yesterday. Right now it's 10:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, April the 5th, 2024. He says, looking forward to His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh first U.S. invasion with Crawford. We all know Bud Fundora ain't happening. Not for nothing, Errol was in the ring last Saturday after the fight. I like Crawford versus Bahachuk in L.A. or Vegas for the interim WBC title, but he says that's wishful thinking. But then he posted this today about 5 hours or so ago. It's great Terence Crawford has Saudi support. He is definitely number 2 or the number 1 for some pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Israel Madrimov emerges as the front-runner rival for his debut at 154 pounds. Solid match, looking forward to it. So where do we start? First, PBC showed their hand last week when Sebastian Fundora got the upset win over Tszyu. And they had Errol Spence in the ring. You even had Fundora's manager go as far to say there was no rematch clause for Tszyu, and that they were going for an Errol Spence fight in Dallas this summer. In Dallas this summer. But this last Monday, the WBO, Sebastian Fundora is the WBC and WBO champion. The WBO put out an order saying that starting today on April the 5th, Fundora and Crawford had to start negotiating for a fight. Crawford, about several weeks ago, had a meeting with the WBO and basically invoked his mandatory status. So when you're a champion by the WBO in the previous division, which Terence Crawford was at 147, when you move up in weight, you become the automatic mandatory. So PBC, Fundora's team tried to pull some shenanigans there, and basically you can see it's this kind of a Game of Thrones tug of war going on with these belts. So where do I begin? First, let's talk about Israel Madrimov. I've been covering him for years. I actually got a chance to ask him some questions a couple of years ago on a media call. He's 10-0-1 with 7 KOs. Last was against Magomed Kurbanov. That was also on a Saudi card. That was on the undercard of Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou. Very solid fighter, Uzbekistanian. He's he is a style of fighter, I guess, that Crawford hasn't really seen before. You know, he's got some technical ability to him. The last real technical fighter that Crawford has fought that was in their prime, I am going to say, was Victor Postol, 2016, 8 years ago, on pay-per-view, Crawford's first pay-per-view. Where that was also Crawford's last fight where he went to decision. And if you go back and watch that fight, Crawford did a lot of moving around. I don't know what it was, but it seems as though he either respected the power of Victor Postol or the skill set, or maybe he just wanted to show that he could move. But looking at who Crawford is today, he could have knocked him out. But since then, as you can see, Crawford has knocked out John Molina Jr., Felix Diaz, Julius Ndangu, Jeff Horn, Jose Benavidez, Amir Khan, Aglias Kavalauskas, Kell Brooks, Sean Porter, David Evanesian, and beat the dog shit out of Errol Spence, and his fans are still crying. Oh, Spence was this, the car accidents and that. I'm sorry. The way that ass whooping went, and who Terence Crawford is, I can see that it would have went the same way no matter when they would have fought. It would have been maybe a more competitive fight, but I still think he would have lost and got beat up. So say for example, if they were to go forward with Errol Spence versus Fundora, if they were to go forward, by the way, Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora has been suspended for 6 months by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So, of course, they can probably fight somewhere else, but it's looking like they're not going to be fighting no time soon. But if Sebastian Fundora and Spence were to fight next, and Spence was to beat Fundora, and I would probably pick Spence to beat Fundora, even though we don't know who Spence is and what type of fighter he is after the ass whooping he's taken. He's no longer with Derek James. The rumors are they split over money issues. But if Spence was to get his hands on that WBC and WBO title, then you can expect for him to play the same games at 154 pounds that they played at 147 by keeping the belts away from Terence Crawford. Because look, there was a rematch clause for Terence Crawford and Spence to fight. Spence did not take the rematch for whatever reasons. The rematch didn't happen, and he tried to leapfrog because of his political affiliation with PBC and Amazon Prime. He tried to leapfrog Terence Crawford and get his shot over him. Now, from what we've seen over the last week, it hasn't even been a week since Fundora beat Tszyu. There is a written rematch clause in place, despite what Samson Lukovic said in the post-fight press conference. Let me just go ahead and say it. Samson tried to get Fundora to duck Terence Crawford and the mandatory shot. It's still heavy speculation that Fundora will drop that WBO title and go on for the bigger money fight with Errol Spence, despite the fact that Fundora said numerous times in various different professional ways that, listen, Errol Spence is a great fight, but I want to fight the best fighter in the world, Terence Crawford. But his team don't want that. So I think it's a masterful move for Crawford and his team, if it's true that they're going to sign with the Saudis. For one, the Saudis are giving away money like candy. Remember, if you don't know, all of their events, it's rumored to have financially failed, but I don't think they care. The best move is, if it was to happen, to make it happen in Omaha, and we know what the Saudis have been doing. They've been stacking their undercards. You know, would it be in Vegas or Omaha? I think the best bet is to be Vegas, and then stack the undercard up, and then we can probably see Crawford versus Israel Madrimov for maybe 200,000 pay-per-view buys, depending on what the undercard looks like. Now, Crawford has been known not to be the biggest seller of pay-per-views. You know, that's been well known, but it's because, for one, all of the guys that he could sell against and build his name off were kept away from him intentionally. And you can understand the PBC side of things. You can say, okay, well, why would we do a co-promotion with a fight like this that really can't even crack 1 million pay-per-view buys, when we can have Errol Spence fight all of the guys on his side of the street, beat them, and then fight Terence Crawford, instead of having Terence Crawford build his name off of our PBC fighters. And as far as that Boots Ennis fight, it was offered to Boots Ennis. He could have had the fight. He didn't take it. Yeah, it would have been on BLK Prime, but he didn't take it. For whatever the reasons, he can't say he didn't have a chance to fight Terence Crawford. It was there. And Boots Ennis, with his loyalty to Showtime, for whatever reason, not having a contract, by the way, not having a contract, he didn't take the fight and turn down possibly career-high payday. And now, look, he's having trouble getting the fight. I think he should fight at Montestano, Jonas, my personal opinion, though. But it's looking like it's going to be Cody Crowley. So, looking at the 154-pound division, here's Israel Madrimov beating up Magomed Kurbanov, by the way, a few weeks ago. Funny story about Kurbanov. Kurbanov was passed over for Tszyu for a WBO title shot. It should have been him, but because the WBO liked Tszyu, they gave it to him. Here's him getting... But yeah, he's been Charlo's mandatory for a long time. Not as long as Bakhram Murtazaliev, by the way, who's taking on Jack Kouquet for the vacant IBF title tomorrow. Where's it at? Tomorrow. No U.S. stateside broadcaster for this fight, but I'm going to be watching it. I'm going to find it somewhere. He's been the the IBF mandatory since, from my understanding, 2019. Bakhram Murtazaliev finally getting his shot, fighting on. He looks drained too. Fighting on Jamel Charlo undercards in dark matches, nonetheless. Getting step aside money, okay. But he's been getting fucked around too. So looking at the landscape of this division right now, Erickson Lubin is saying, team is saying that he's in line for the winner of Murtazaliev Kouquet. You got Terence Crawford rumored to be going after the WBA. I'm guessing since the WBO was held up, but he'll automatically be able to get a shot. He'll still be able to get a shot with the WBO. But right now, I think it's a smart move to try to get his hands on these belts, or that WBA, or the IBF if he can, before PBC starts their shenanigans, because that bullshit they tried to pull with Spence last week, even though it's looking like it's not going to happen, they tried it. And it still can happen. We can still see Fundora versus Spence, but Fundora would have to drop his WBO title. So it's looking like they're going to wait around Fundora's team and Tszyu for them to heal up and hold on to that WBO belt. So do not be surprised if Fundora's team petitions the WBO to try to make that Tszyu rematch for the belt to further keep it away from Crawford. Because if that move didn't tell you last week that the shadiness they were trying to do, and for Spence to, I just feel that it just was like just some shady ass shit. It's like you duck the rematch and then go try to fight the guy's mandatory who beat you up in a higher division, knowing damn well that he wants to go up there and dominate too. But hey, it's business is business. But there is no faith that I have that if Errol Spence was to get a hold of those belts, the WBC, the WBO, or both, that he's not going to give Terrence Crawford the runaround again. He's going to give him the runaround again. And it's already on the way. So I'm hoping that Fundora is one of those fighters that can push his team and be like, no, if it's not Tszyu, I want Terrence Crawford. I don't want to be known to drop my belt, because all the goodwill that Fundora has built up for his career, it's going to go out the window. Because people are going to be like, no matter how, they're going to be like, you ducked. You ducked him. You ducked him.
You said you would like to fight the winner.
You ducked him. I don't want that for Fundora. So we're going to see how this plays out. It's going to be interesting to see, what the Saudis do, especially since they're trying to make their mark or trying to come over to American boxing. I'm highly interested to see what their plans are going to be. With that being said, we're going to be talking about this more after Bakhram Murtazaliev versus Jack Couquet. In fact, let me see here. Who's on that undercard? There is no stateside TV deal for this fight tomorrow on April the 6th. It's happening over in Germany. But very significant, influential fight on the 154-pound division. It's like a Game of Thrones thing going on. It was, where they're just trying to gather up the belts for political reasons. And Charles Conwell, he's on the Haney undercard. Sergey Bahachuk is the WBC interim champion. Jamel Charlo is the champion in recess. So you see what I'm saying there? Is that if hypothetically Fundora and Spence do fight next, Sergey Bahachuk is the mandatory. Spence will be like, I got to fight my mandatory, despite the fact that, a Crawford fight would trump that because it'll be a unification if Crawford gets his hands on the belt. And then let's not forget Jamel Charlo, even though a lot of people don't feel he's going to come back down to 154 pounds, there's still that chance he could come back down. And Erickson Lubin is already circling around this title shot right here for the winner of Murtazaliev versus Couquet, a PBC fighter. So they're going to play keep away. So right now, Heyman's got his guys already set up for these belts. Take your time out. Like the video, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Here's my profile. At TstreeT Controversy on Twitter. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.